Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I see we're at 4 o'clock here, so appreciate you getting on the line. And appreciate Barb Davis being here. Barb is joining us from the American Endowment Foundation, and we're going to talk about, or the title of this presentation is The Power of Giving. We want to bring in some charitable conversations to the mix here and provide some different thoughts and opinions and methods that hopefully that you find helpful. And if you're looking for the recording afterwards, we're sending this out to a bunch of people. Happy to send it to anyone that's joining us live. If they want to listen to it after, just let us know. And Kevin really likes it when I tell jokes about the topic of interest. He asks me every month, John, you're going to tell jokes, right? So I want to make Kevin happy in this. Unless you have any good charitable jokes, Kevin. Any good ones you want to bring up?
Gosh, had I known, I would have prepped for this, but why don't I let you take the stage?
Oh, okay, I'll take it. So, Kevin, how do you organize a fundraiser for the Earth?
How do you organize a fundraiser for the Earth? I don't know. How's that?
You plan it. Plan it.
All
Yep.
right.
I can hear all you laughing. Kevin, why did the clown donate his salary?
Why did the clown donate his salary? Why is that?
It was a nice gesture.
Oh, geez. I like the first one better.
Ah, those are quality. All right, I'm getting a lot of chats that you guys want more. So last one. Why did Duracell donate batteries for their matching gift program?
Why did Duracell donate batteries for their matching gift program? Why is that?
They were free of charge. All
Oh,
right.
geez.
With that being said, um, we're going to be getting started here, and I am recording this for all of you on the line, just FYI there. But we do these monthly webinar series where we try and switch the topics up, but we've got a few different comments that people want to hear about the charitable options and techniques that are out there. So again, just want to thank Barb for joining us. And Barb, I will turn it over to you to share your screen, and you can go through your slides.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about charitable giving and charitable planning. Let me see if I can get my screen up here to share. And here we go. All right. You can see that okay?
Not yet. You're muted, John, but no, I don't see anything quite yet.
There we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
How's that? Okay.
Thank you.
We're good now. I am with American Endowment Foundation, and I work with advisors and their clients to help them achieve whatever long-term charitable planning strategy they would like to implement. American Endowment Foundation has been a sponsor of donor advised funds for over 30 years. We are a 501c3 charitable organization. Really, it starts with how can I make a difference? And sometimes you have to think differently. We are all very aware of giving direct to the organizations that we want to support. And that is, above all, the most direct and most efficient way to give. But sometimes we want to match our giving with our long-term goals. And with a donor advised fund, you can really achieve those immediate charitable goals, including that tax deduction when you need it. But let those funds accumulate and grow for future giving. And it really is a way to simplify your charitable giving. For example, if you're giving to 5 different organizations throughout the year, you're receiving 5 different gift tax receipts. Comes tax time, that's additional paperwork that you need to find and give to your tax preparer. With a donor advised fund, it is one gift and one gift tax receipt. And then for those of you that enjoy what we call in this world giving season, that is the last quarter of the year where you're stressed to make those decisions about who do I give to. I got to get it out of my IRA by, December 31st. And you have that anxiety about who to give to, how much to give, and the time restriction. A donor advised fund can take care of that and really alleviate that stress for you. DAFs are the most popular and fastest growing charitable giving option in the country. In 2021 through 2023, we saw DAFs really explode at about 125% increase every year. And when we look at the wealth transfer that will happen over the next few decades, we're looking at over $7 trillion that will move from the current generation to the next generation and be charitably earmarked dollars. So it's a great option to consider. But what is a donor advised fund? It is a separately identified fund for charitable giving. Think of it just like you have your IRA or you have a college savings plan. This would be your charitable giving account. It is administered by a sponsoring organization, in this case, American Endowment Foundation. And you are able to then, as the donor, make grants to the organizations that you want to support. In very simplistic explanation, you, the donor, will gift some security asset to the donor advised fund, and later you will make grants out to the organizations that you want to benefit. When you make the gift to the donor advised fund, transfer those assets, it is an irrevocable gift. So it becomes, in our case, the property of American Endowment Foundation. That irrevocable gift is what triggers this gift tax receipt and where you will receive that income tax deduction. For gifts of cash, you can deduct up to 60% of your AGI each year with a 5-year carry forward for any unused gift tax credit. For gifts in kind, meaning things like highly appreciated securities or real estate or cryptocurrency, it's a 30% of your AGI that you can deduct each year. Now, in order to take that deduction, you need to be over the standard deduction. So number one, if I have enough deductions to get myself over the standard deduction, or if I'm making a sizable enough charitable deduction that will get me over the standard deduction, then it's going to be a beneficial idea for me. If I'm not making enough in gifts or dollars to really get over that standard deduction, I'm losing out on some of that tax savings. So always check with your tax preparer or with the guys at Capital Group to see if it might make sense for you to look at a larger deduction in 1 year, so that a larger gift in 1 year, so that you can get over that standard deduction. Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill that was passed in July, that standard deduction will be going up a little bit here, married filing jointly to a little over, to right around $30,000 for a married couple. Why choose a donor advised fund? Again, you get your tax deduction right away. So I don't have to worry about tracking down receipts, and I can time that tax deduction, that gift, with a year when I maybe have a higher income. Perhaps I'm receiving a distribution as a bonus. Perhaps I am inheriting some funds, or I've sold a business or a property and I'm going to have some additional gains or income that year. It would be great to time that with a gift to a donor advised fund. I can manage and consolidate my granting. So to clarify, a gift is when you put the money into the donor advised fund, and a grant is when you send the money on or out to that ultimate charity. I can manage that in one place, one account, keep track of everything, very consolidated. I can set up recurring grants if I want. So if I'm giving to a certain organization every year at the same time, or if I give to my church on a monthly basis, I can make recurring grants. And then ultimately, the benefit of the donor advised fund is that those assets sitting in that donor advised fund are being managed and invested by your advisors, and they're growing. Not only are they growing, but they're growing tax-free. Again, remember, we're a 501c3, so we are a nonprofit. We don't pay taxes. And as the owners of those dollars inside of your donor advised fund, we're not incurring any capital gains taxes or any income taxes. And so that allows those dollars to grow tax-free and really increase the impact that your gift has. If I donate a highly appreciated stock, let's call it NVIDIA, into my donor advised fund, I am getting the gift tax for the value, fair market value of that security on the date of the gift. It's then put into the donor advised fund and can be sold. I'm not incurring any taxable gain on those dollars. It can be reinvested and managed and grown for the future. Different ways to gift to a donor advised fund. We talked about highly appreciated stocks, mutual funds. You can do cash, obviously. We can also work with complex or more illiquid securities and investments, and that would include things like privately held shares. If you're a business owner and you're looking to sell your business prior to the sale, why not consider gifting some of that ownership into the donor advised fund? You're avoiding, again, the capital gain on those shares, and you've set up your lifetime giving account separate from your other dollars. In addition, we can do non-publicly traded assets, including things like cryptocurrency, real estate, whether that's commercial real estate or residential real estate. Typically, we can take real estate as a gift if it is a complete gift. If it's a partial gift, maybe you want to give half the value of the property, or even if it's in the case of a bargain sale where you want to get some money back out of that gift. We can do it with a mortgage on the asset as well. Additional things that we over the years have received as gifts include a racehorse, a stand of timber, some soybeans. We don't do timeshares. Don't ask us about timeshares. Not going to do that. Has to have value. Artwork is an option, but there are better ways to donate art. Circling back to kind of who American Endowment Foundation is, we are one of the largest independent providers of donor advised funds, and we have worked with clients throughout all 50 states. We are about $8 billion in assets under management. Last year alone, we granted $1.3 billion to over 34,000 different charities. At American Endowment Foundation, we really value our independence, and we are cause neutral. So we don't put our finger on the scale and say, you can't grant to this group or that group. You as the donor have the flexibility to grant to whomever you want. American Endowment Foundation is one donor advised fund sponsor. There are many donor advised fund sponsors out there, and some of them are affiliated with a religious group. Some of them are community-based. Some of them are national providers like we are. It's important when you're looking and evaluating the donor advised fund sponsor that you want to use, that it meets your goals. Okay. Every donor advised fund provider has a different minimum. Some are as low as $0 to start one. Some are higher. Ours is $25,000. They all have a grant amount. So again, there is typically a minimum dollar to make a grant out to an organization. Some are $0. Ours is $250. Some are a little higher. And every donor advised fund provider charges a fee to do the administration of that donor advised fund. So it's important that you get that information and understand how that's affecting your granting, your giving legacy. Our average donor advised fund size is around 100, a little over 111,000, and about 78% of our donors grant every year. So one of the misconceptions about donor advised funds is that it's just a place for wealthy people to put money and they never give money out and it just stays there. That's not true. With a donor advised fund, while there is no requirement that you make a grant every year, like with some other charitable giving strategies that are out there, we encourage our donors to grant. Ultimately, that is our mission, to expand philanthropy and get the money in the hands of those people who can make it work and grow. As donors and here at American Endowment Foundation, we don't work direct to the public. We only work through advisors like the guys at Capital Group. And we kind of see this in a three-part process, if you will, or that pyramid of strength. We are here to support you, the donor, with your granting and with the receipt of those gifts that you want to give. Your advisors take on and continue that relationship with you and manage the money in the way that they have been doing for you all along. They will grow the money in the way that's appropriate to meet your goals. So if your goal in your strategy is to set this up and distribute the money over a 3-year period of time, they have the freedom and flexibility to manage those dollars to achieve that goal. If, on the other hand, your goal is to create a family legacy of giving, and you want this to last for generations, teaching not only the next generation, but the generation after that about your values and goals when it comes to being charitably inclined, then they have the freedom and the flexibility to really invest the dollars to achieve that goal as well. Ultimately, with a donor advised fund, you're looking at making a larger impact tomorrow, creating that long-term legacy of giving and supporting the organizations that you want to benefit. Again, when it comes to charitable planning, it's not a one-size-fits-all. When it comes to the types of charitable giving vehicles that are available, certainly donor advised funds are one. You also have the option to look at a private foundation or a family foundation, and those were established very popular in the 1980s for those of you that might not remember back that far. Today, we typically see a private foundation being set up if it's $10 million or more, and only if the donor wants to be actively involved in the administration and management of that fund. To set up a private foundation, it requires some legal paperwork as well as annual reporting on a 990 form. And private foundations have a 5% annual distribution requirement. If you have a private foundation and you've gotten to the point where you're on generation 2 or generation 3, and they're not as actively involved or don't want to be involved in the management, or maybe the foundation has paid out a significant portion of its dollars, you can always gift from that foundation to a donor advised fund. Or a lot of times use a donor advised fund as kind of a sidecar in that strategy, where I have to make my 5% distribution from my private foundation every year, but maybe I ran out of time this year or I don't know who to give it to. I can grant out to my donor advised fund. So I've satisfied my IRS requirement, but I also have the money still sitting here that I can grant out to organizations. A very popular strategy with a donor advised fund, you can grant anonymously. So you can grant in name, in memory of, or you can grant completely anonymously. From a private foundation, your name or that foundation name is always part of that grant. So for some folks, they may want to grant off-brand, if you will. Think of a famous basketball player, has a foundation, but some of the organizations he wants to support are maybe off-brand. He established a donor advised fund to allow him to do that, where he could grant to some other organizations anonymously. Again, still benefiting what he thought was important, but not damaging the reputation of the foundation or his market value, if you will. When it comes to granting, it's very easy from a donor advised fund. You simply choose the amount, recommend the charity, we review it and establish, yep, that's a good charity. It meets the requirements, and then the grant is paid. When you're talking about flexibility for those distributions, and maybe that family planning legacy that you want to do, you do have many options with a donor advised fund to create the exact disposition plan that you want, whether that be a customized disposition plan or something where mom and dad set up the donor advised fund, and when they've passed away, son and daughter take over and make those grant recommendations. When son and daughter have moved on, they name the grandkids and they can make those grant recommendations. Or you can set up kind of an endowment where a percentage of the account is granted out every year to the organizations that you want to support. And instead of being a lump sum one-time gift, you're making a lasting endowment, a lasting distribution that continues the charity's good works well into the future. So you have a lot of flexibility with a donor advised fund. Here at American Endowment Foundation, we kind of do this process where you would submit the grant through our online portal. Most of the donor advised fund providers offer some type of online or paper distribution grant recommendation form. We do our due diligence and vet that charity. We request the funds. We receive the funds from the advisors, from the investment account, and we send it out. We do prefer to ACH the dollars directly to the charity as opposed to sending a check. And unfortunately, we cannot send a check to the donor to present to the charity. It has to go direct to that organization, but we do provide the donor with a grant letter. And that letter says that the grant is coming, the dollars are coming, and you can certainly take that and present to the organization and show them what you're doing. One thing with a donor advised fund that they cannot do, a donor advised fund, according to the IRS, when you're talking about grants out, we cannot pay for anything more that would give the donor more than incremental benefit. So if you're going to an auction, we cannot have the donor advised fund pay for your auction item. You're receiving more than an incidental benefit from that. We can't bifurcate a gift, which means we can't split it and say this part is taxable and this part is tax-free. So if you're going to an auction and you're bidding on some item, our recommendation is always to save those dollars outside of the DAF, plan or budget what that is, and go have a good time. Let your donor advised fund be there for those serious gifts that you want to make, okay? So no Super Bowl tickets and no purchasing a table at an event. You can get a pen or a coffee mug, maybe a pie. I understand that there are pie auctions that happen. So if you're going to get a pie, I think that's considered incidental. Again, with American Endowment Foundation, and that's what I know, you will receive, again, these grant letters that guarantee that show you what your grant was and that it was paid and sent out. You have the ability to grant in name with a donor's purpose. So in honor of my mother-in-law, for a specific purpose at that charity, for the wildfires in California, or remain anonymous. We also provide for you a tracking system that you see where you can see all of the grants that you have made, not only for this year, but in past years. You can see your granting history over several years and determine if you've given more this year to a particular organization or less, if you're ahead or behind. And we break it out according to the types of organizations that you've granted to as well. Okay. again, we'll kind of circle back into why use a donor advised fund. First of all, they're very quick and easy to set up. Really, your portion is signing an email confirming that this is what you want to do. You get to name your donor advised fund whatever you want to name it. You can fund it with essentially whatever you want to fund it, and you can choose that disposition plan. You also have the option to change that as your goals change over time. So I may want to name my fund the Barb Davis Charitable Fund, but down the road, I decide that I want to make it more the Davis Family Charitable Fund and incorporate the next generation. I may set it up where I want my son to be my successor and make those grant recommendations, but maybe he, isn't that interested, and I could change it to my daughter. I may say that I want money to go to Habitat for Humanity, but maybe I change my mind and want to go to, an animal shelter. I can do that. I can change and update and be flexible with anything about my donor advised fund except that gift. That is irrevocable. Again, a donor advised fund, very simple to set up, very inexpensive compared to some of the other options out there. We didn't talk about those, but I'll go back. Again, it solves my tax problem today. If I've received a taxable event this year, I can match that to my gifts and offset some of that tax. It's one account I have to keep track of, not many. And again, the benefit of growing these assets tax-free with professional money managers that have the flexibility to manage the money to achieve my goal. It just doesn't get any better than that. We didn't talk about some of the other charitable vehicles, charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust, those types of things. Again, they're all great vehicles, typically involve some type of an attorney to draw up the legal paperwork, but a donor advised fund can fit in that to provide you the flexibility as well. I'm going to stop and ask if there are questions.
Yeah, and the one thing, I appreciate that, Barb. One of the things that I just wanted to share with you live here and anyone listening to the recording, if you would want to be provided this chart. Kevin, do you see this charitable giving planning chart?
Yes, I do.
Okay. This basically just outlines the different types of charitable giving that you can consider. To Barb's point, there's a lot of different options. Donor advised fund is by far the most popular and flexible, but it goes all the way from just direct gifts over to some different types of trust planning with CLATs or CLUTs and different minimums and pluses and minuses and pros and cons that we can discuss, but I'm happy to send this chart to anyone that would find that of interest. So feel free to just email Kevin or I and we can get that to you. If there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand, but just as I think about just some common questions that I get from clients, maybe I'll just restate one of them and let you answer, Barb. We've talked about it a few times, but talk about using a required minimum distribution to give that to a DEF.
Yeah, that's one I didn't have in my slides. So a donor advised fund, according to the IRS rules, is prohibited from receiving a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, direct from an IRA. So that has to do partly with how they're treated currently tax-wise. A qualified charitable distribution, or QCD, is an above-the-line deduction. So when you send money direct from your IRA to that charity, it's like the income never happened, right? You don't get a deduction, but you also don't incur the income. With a donor advised fund, we cannot take income assets. So this applies also to annuities. So we can't take an annuity into a donor advised fund. What you would have to do is realize the income and then make a cash gift to the donor advised fund. As an example, if my adjusted gross income is $100,000 and I have a $30,000 RMD, I could pull that $30,000 RMD out, recognize the income. So now my AGI would go to $130,000. I could make a $30,000 gift to a donor advised fund and receive that gift tax credit of $30,000. Now, because it's cash, I can deduct up to 60% of my AGI. My AGI is 130,000. 60% of that is going to be somewhere 84,000. 84. So certainly I can deduct all of that $30,000 gift, and my AGI essentially goes back down to the $100,000. Now, depending on your tax bracket, your other deductions, etc., you may or may not erase all of the tax that you're incurring, but it's going to take away a significant chunk of it. The benefit of doing a one-time distribution from the IRA like that, what we kind of call bunching or bundling several years worth of QCDs, is that I'm going to get over the standard deduction and should receive a higher tax break than if I were doing just, $5,000 QCD every year and not getting over the standard deduction. Plus, I've positioned that money into that charitable giving account, and I've already set it aside for those future gifts. It has the ability to grow tax-free, not tax deferred like it is in the IRA, but grow tax-free. And in the event the market turns, sometimes we have negative years in the market, I don't have to reduce my giving to my organizations because I've already set that money aside.
Yeah, that's helpful. Appreciate the explanation there. I guess kind of to add on to that would be, maybe you can just touch on, I guess, if there's a certain timeline when the money has to be used up by. I mean, it sounds like the majority of people are giving regularly from their DAF, but if there are any specific requirements, or if it's kind of a more looser from that standpoint for the rules.
Yeah, and that's a great question. There is no ending date for a donor advised fund. There is no annual distribution requirement. Essentially, the donor advised fund could go on forever. That's the great thing about it. Each donor advised fund's provider will have some type of a requirement, a granting policy. And the granting policy will say that they want you to make a minimum grant every so many months. Our policy is probably the most liberal in that we want you to make one grant for at least $250 every 36 months. So that's our minimum to keep the donor advised fund active. If you don't grant that often, then it becomes dormant, and we will make a grant for you. And that is done to either the organization that you granted to last, or if you haven't granted, we will use what our philanthropic council has chosen for that year. But other than that, we don't force you to grant every year. We're just asking that you do one grant for $250 or more every 36 months. You do have unlimited grants, so you could grant as much as you want, as often as you want. There's no additional cost to do that. And that includes if you want to grant internationally, you can grant to organizations outside of the US. Typically that has an additional cost just because there's a different vetting structure that happens, but certainly an option as well.
Thank you.
John, you mentioned the profile for all of the different charitable vehicles and way to give.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows, anytime you see a C in that CRT, CRUT, whatever, that charity can be a donor advised fund. Again, we are a 501c3, so we are a charity. And what it does is, instead of with an individual CRAT or CRET where you're generating income and you have to name a charity, you can name the donor advised fund and then maintain that flexibility to distribute to other organizations or have that successor person step in there for you. So it can be a great option when using those other vehicles as well.
Yeah, good point on that. And I'm not seeing any questions here, but certainly if you do have questions, feel free to contact Kevin and I. We have a great resource in Barb when it comes to donor advised funds. Certainly want to help all of our clients with their charitable endeavors, whether that be now or into the future. And Barb, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And for your knowledge in this topic. And for those online and listening to the recording, next month our topic is going to be long-term care. So be on the lookout for that date coming. But just different ways to consider that and how to fund it. Kevin, any last points?
No, thanks for your time today, Barb. Appreciate everyone who joined us for the call. And yeah, have a fantastic rest of your day.
Okay, thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.